Welcome to the teaching on parts. I wanted to add a little bit more information for you guys about parts therapy and what exactly we're going to be covering. So I'm going to maybe show you the chart from Bill Plotkin's book, but it's going to be backwards, so it's not really going to work out. But so that you can look into your what I've added to your package there, check out his map of the psyche. So we want to look at that, and I'm going to read you a little blurb from Wild Mind also to get us started. The self and the subpersonalities may be thought of as a set of perceptual filters or frameworks the ego can look through, an assortment of perspectives on one's self, life, and the world, or as different ways the ego can tell the story of its life using a variety of narratives. This can also be thought of different hats the ego can wear or psychosocial roles it can play. Mature, psychologically healthy people can consciously choose most of the time which version or versions of themselves they operate as. But someone with limited physical or psychological development, or a more mature person in temporary stressful circumstances that trigger the survival strategies of one or more subpersonalities, might have no capacity to choose. The availability of the self's perspective and hats depends on conscious cultivation of our horizontal wholeness and its four facets. Many Westerners have no awareness of the self with a capital S, and no ability to access it, no realization that they have other options. Their consciousness is entirely identified with their subpersonalities. You could say that at any given moment they are one of their subpersonalities, and until their circumstances abduct them into another subpersonality. So some personality titles could be conformist, addict, tyrant, critic, or counterfeit guru. When identified with a subpersonality, we simply react to our perceived circumstances. But as we cultivate our ability to observe and act from the self, we become proactive. When our ego is identified with our self, our whole self, we have multiple behavioral options. So the reason we want to do our parts therapy this way is to increase our choice in how we show up in the world, really. When we are identified with our subs and living in our survival strategy, we end up thinking that's who we are, and that's who we show up in the world as. And it's a really limiting perspective. And so often I hear it becomes who we think we are. And so we'll think that the voice that we hear that's telling us that we are not good enough, or we shouldn't aim for that, we're not good enough for that, is true. And so we believe it. So what we want to do in this process is learn the difference between our subpersonalities and our whole self. That way we are learning how to be in our whole self and work with our subpersonalities. And Bill's done a great job of mapping out, especially the whole self. He's really given us some pictures that we can use to cultivate access to that in ourselves, because it's important to know that subpersonalities and fragments cannot heal each other. So if you are identified with one of your subpersonalities and fragments, you cannot heal from there. You have to be in your whole self and heal your fragments from that place. So that's a really important piece to know. So I like this because our other option is that we are one mind, and some of us are crazy and some aren't. The problem with that idea of the one main mind that rules it all is that we rely on our self-control to help us become better people. So this other way of working with ourselves as a whole self and parts means that I really can cultivate a relationship with these ones of me that might have gotten extreme, but maybe don't actually want to be as extreme as they are. And by building a relationship with them, I can be the adult. They can learn to trust me as the self that's in charge and become less extreme over time. Plus, I can heal them and bring them up from the past where they're stuck. So say my wounded child has had this experience that has convinced him that the world is dangerous, and I'm living from that place. I can get stuck there, and I can live like I can just keep shrinking myself actually. So eventually maybe I don't want to leave my house. I can't have relationships with people. I've just really limited myself. And then we see that in older people who are less open, more shut down. Our body physically mirrors that. So we're maybe more hunched over and we're hiding deep inside ourselves. Or we can bring that one whose experience of the world was dangerous and unsafe, and we can bring that one along with us and say, it's okay, sweetheart. I know that was true at one time, but here's the resources we have. Here's how we can show up in difficult situations. Here's how we can be resource ourselves. And then we bring that little one along. So she's no longer stuck back where she was in this dangerous situation. She's now here with me in the present moment. And when I do that kind of work and live in my wholeness, I have access to living from my heart. So I'm connected to myself. I have more courage and compassion for me. I have more connection with other people, with myself, with the world around me. And it causes me to expand in life, to live my biggest possible story, to not shrink and hide and have to, confirm my survival story suspicions. So if I believe the world is dangerous, I'm going to look for things outside myself to confirm to me that that's true, because it helps me justify staying locked inside myself. So I might surround myself with unhealthy people who are dangerous, and it triggers me to go back inside, see the world's not safe. I knew that was going to happen, and we can keep that story going forever and ever. So I'm hoping that through this process you really get a taste for what your whole self, your fragments, to get excited about learning to ask yourself that question, who's speaking, to discover that your inner critic is not all you are, and that you can heal it and learn to work with that kind of protector like that. So I'm excited that you are not going to have to rely on your ability to be self-controlled and to have lots of willpower, but that you are actually going to rely on your adult ability to hold your nurturing generative adult, to hold what you find, to connect with yourself in this deep way, and live from that kind of place instead.